Let's take a look at number 22 on UBC's set of practice problems. There is an outbreak of an incredibly contagious, life-threatening disease. The disease is spreading across the country at a rapid rate, and the survival is less than 50%. You are a senior healthcare administrator, and when the vaccine is developed, you have a priority for the drug. So you have priority to receive the drug. Do you take the vaccine yourself, or do you give it to another person? Why or why not? Now, when you look at this, you might think that doctors need to be responsible for other people's health. So the thing that they want to hear is that you're going to give up the vaccine and you'll sacrifice yourself. Well, is that really the right answer? This will probably be a quick little breakdown of what's going on here. So, in this case, you are over here. So you are a senior health administrator. And you have someone else. I'll literally go ahead and write someone else. And this is going to be a discussion scenario, right? You're not actually going to be interacting with this other person. So you're actually going to be talking with an interviewer, what you would do in this case. And we're going to be talking about, let's just put this in perspective here, right? Because when you look at this, you might say, okay, one vaccine, it's, how many vaccines did we make? Let's say that the timeline for this disease, which we're going to ask in the questions later, but let's just say that the timeline for this disease is quick. And, for this instance, right, you can either take this one copy of the vaccine or you can give it to someone else. But let's just say time was a factor in this case. So we'll try to make this seem a little bit more of an actual problem or a dilemma, right? Because in that case, it doesn't really seem like a problem. If you've made 1 million vaccines, why don't you both take one, right? So let's just assume both taking one is not an option. But we'll figure out this out in the situation in a moment. So what is the problem here? The problem here is, do you use the vaccine or give it to someone else? It may seem like a difficult situation, right? Because it seems too easy just to give it to somebody else. Is that the right answer? We just want to look at both sides of the situation and understand what each decision, keeping the vaccine for yourself or giving it to this other person, would entail, right? So you want to make sure that you're just approaching it with the right way, and then really whatever you decide on, I think it'll be decided for you in the end. You'll see what I mean. But whatever you decide on, as long as you've considered both sides, should be fine for a situation like this. So let's collect some information. We are a senior health administrator. What is a senior health administrator? And this will be relevant in a moment. What is a senior health? What is a senior health administrator? How many vaccines have we made so far? How many vaccines have we made so far? How many do we make per hour, I guess you could say? How many do we make per hour? What other questions should we be asking in this case? Will we ever have a cure, right? Well, we have a vaccine right now, and vaccines are going to be preventative, but will we ever have a cure? So are we working on a cure for people who are currently infected? For those who are already infected? And right there, let's go ahead and do either of us show signs of the disease? Doesn't look like an F there. There we go. Show signs of the disease. Now, this is going to be like a little bit of a checklist to help you out, right? These are the questions that I would want to ask. I'd want this information. The ones that are going to be directly relevant to answering the question. This one over here, what is a senior health administrator? This is going to be a big one over here. This one and this last one over here, do any of us have current signs of disease? Those are the big main ones that we're going to be looking at, right? Because when it comes down to the solutions, right? Here's coming to figure out what our solutions can be. What are we going to do? What is the decision? It seems a quick decision. Do we give it to him or do we keep it, right? There's really two choices over here. Keep it for yourself or use it, I guess. Or give it to the other person. I actually want to add one more question up here. Who is this other person? And I'm going to give this one a green circle too, because this one has importance too. Not that the other questions aren't important, but these are the main ones that you want to ask. So come down to the solution part. What should we do? Do we keep it or do we give it to the other person? Well, really, you want to keep in mind one thing, right? This is what I believe is the main thing you need to keep in mind when trying to solve this problem. How can we save the most people? This is my priority here. This is what you're going to want to say. I am going to make this decision based on how I can save the most people, right? If I were to give it to this other person, it seems like a heroic thing to do, but is that really going to save the most amount of people? It may seem that we are somebody who is not selfish and we're willing to sacrifice our life for this person who we have no idea who it is, but is that the right thing we need to do, right? So, who this person is, they might actually give you an identity for this person, or they might just say there is no identity for this person. You don't know if it's a family member or somebody else in the healthcare system or just a random person on the street who you've never met before. So what do you want to do in this case? Well, looking up here, right, we see that we are a senior health administrator. Well, what is a senior health administrator, right? If we're somebody who is in charge of, trying to determine where these vaccines will go to maximize the amount of people they can save, right? Then perhaps, someone who is a senior health administrator, somebody who is going to be able to track where the disease is heading, where the disease currently is, and where would be the best place to send the vaccine, you can probably save a lot of lives. So planning, vaccine, distribution, can save a lot of lives. Right? Well, giving it to another person, the big question to give it to another person is, who is this person? Right? Personally, the only time, and this may be a pretty quick scenario, right? I'm almost finished. The only time I would find justification for giving the other person the medicine is if this person had a more important role in the healthcare system that would make sure more people would be alive, right? So the only time I would take this is, are they important to vaccine production or distribution? Right? That's what this is the big question here, right? Who is this person? Are they important to vaccine production or distribution? If they are they more important than you, right? Are they more important than somebody who is a senior health administrator and whatever your roles are, maybe you're in charge of the distribution of this vaccine? But it really comes down to this one question, right? Are they more important than you in terms of saving lives? So the big question here, the one that boils down to, who will save more lives? That person gets the vaccine. that's how I were to go ahead and think about this. I'm thinking about how we can maximize the amount of lives we're going to save. Now, it might look, first thing you look at this, right? Oh, I'm going to give the vaccine to this other person because, I think that it's the right thing that the mission board wants to hear, that I can sacrifice myself for other people. Don't go ahead and say that, right? Because you're not even thinking about the situation. You're going to go ahead and sacrifice yourself to save somebody else, and then possibly hundreds of thousands of people may die because you were the most qualified person to plan the distribution of this vaccine to make sure that it reaches the places it needs to be, and maybe this other person has no contribution at all. Or perhaps this other person can save, maybe 1 million more lives than you could. Then maybe it's a good chance to risk yourself and give the vaccine to this person. We want to maximize the amount of lives we're going to save. That's how I would go about doing this. A bunch of different ways to look at this case, but that's my way of planning it out. If you have a different way of looking at it, or you want to discuss how we look at this case, feel free to leave a comment below. This is my view. You might have a different one. I'm looking to maximize lives, so don't just go ahead and jump to what you think is what they want to hear, or the obvious side that the admission board is looking for. They really want to see that you can look at both sides of the story and look at the big picture here, right? Between you and this other person, it really doesn't matter who lives. It matters how many of the other people live. You want to look at it on a big picture, not just in this little micro situation here. The big picture is what you want. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. I'll see you guys in the next video.